My family treated me like trash my whole life while worshiping my sister. I helped them with $800 monthly when they needed it. But when they skipped my wedding and demanded $15K from me, I gave them something they never expected. I'm 27 years old. I work as a project manager at a tech company, and what I'm about to tell you basically destroyed any relationship I could have had with my family. The thing is, for as long as I can remember, I always knew I wasn't the favorite child. You know, those things kids pick up on, even though nobody says it out loud. My older sister, Melissa, was 2 years older than me and was, literally, my parents' golden child. Everything she did was perfect. Everything I did was, let's say, insufficient. And I'm not exaggerating to victimize myself or anything. This is something that anyone who spent time at my house as a kid could confirm without thinking twice. I guess I should start from the beginning, when we were kids. I don't remember much from when I was really little, honestly. But what I do remember perfectly is the constant feeling of competing for attention and never winning. Melissa would get good grades and my parents would throw a party. Like literally take her to dinner, at her favorite restaurant and buy her something she'd been asking for. I'd get good grades, sometimes better than hers, and I'd get a very good honey while they kept watching TV. You know what I mean? It wasn't that they were bad parents in the traditional sense. They didn't hit me or anything like that. But there was this brutal difference in how they treated us that I could feel in my stomach every time something happened. When I was like 14, I think, I started realizing this wasn't normal. I mean, I started seeing how my friends interacted with their families and it was completely different. My parents wouldn't come to my school events, but they never missed anything of Melissa's. I played volleyball and was pretty good. Like I was on the varsity team as a sophomore. But they almost never came to see me play, because it always conflicted with something of Melissa's, even if it was something as simple as her wanting to go to the mall. And the worst part is that Melissa knew it. She completely knew it and used it to her advantage. She could ask for anything and get it. While I had to work from age 16 at a clothing store to be able to buy my own things because my parents said it was good for me to learn the value of money. But Melissa never had to work a single day, until after she graduated from college. College was a whole other topic entirely. Melissa wanted to go to this expensive private university, like $50,000 a year, and my parents went into debt up to their necks to pay for everything. Dorm, food, books, everything. When my turn came 2 years later, they told me there wasn't enough money and that I'd have to settle for state university and get scholarships and student loans. And don't get me wrong, state university was good and all, but it was the difference in treatment that killed me inside. Melissa had everything paid for while I worked 30 hours a week on top of my classes to be able to pay my part. And when I complained or said something, my parents told me I was being dramatic, that I should be grateful to be able to go to college, that Melissa was different because she had bigger dreams, as if my dreams didn't matter just as much. So when I turned 18, I basically left home and never looked back. I got a small apartment with 2 roommates, close to campus, and started building my own life away from all that toxicity. And I'm not gonna lie, the first few years were tough, really tough, because besides studying and working, I had this constant guilt about having abandoned my family, even though they never really made me feel like part of it in the first place. But that's how we non-favorite children are, right? Always feeling guilty about things that aren't even our responsibility. Things got really bad when I was like 20. Melissa, who had already graduated and was living with my parents again because apparently she couldn't find a job, though the truth is she wasn't looking very hard, started making up stories about me. I don't know exactly what was going through her head, if she was jealous that I was independent or what, but one day my parents called saying they needed to talk to me urgently. I went to the house, super nervous because my mother's tone sounded serious, and when I got there I found myself facing an intervention like a TV show. My parents accused me, with Melissa sitting there looking all victim-like and concerned, of using drugs and drinking excessively. They said Melissa had told them she'd seen me at parties completely out of control, that she'd heard from people who saw me buying drugs, all this garbage that didn't have an ounce of truth to it. The thing is, I barely went to parties. I worked and studied all the time, and I've never touched drugs in my life, not even marijuana. I drink alcohol occasionally, like a beer with friends every so often, but nothing crazy. I tried to explain this to them, literally told them, you can talk to my professors, my bosses, my roommates. Anyone can confirm that what Melissa is saying is a lie, but they didn't want to listen. My father told me, Your sister has no reason to lie to us. And I just stood there thinking, seriously? After a lifetime of watching her manipulate you, you can't see what she's doing? Melissa even started crying, saying she was so worried about me and just wanted to help me, and my parents bought it completely. I left that house and decided that was enough, that I wasn't going to keep subjecting myself to that treatment. I cut contact with them completely, blocked their numbers, didn't respond to emails, nothing. And honestly, during those 2 years without talking to them, my life improved so much. I graduated with honors, got an amazing job in my field, met Christopher, who was and is the love of my life, and for the first time, I felt at peace. I didn't have that constant voice in my head telling me I wasn't enough, that my sister was better, all that shit I'd been carrying my whole life. Christopher was completely different from anyone I'd ever met. He supported me in everything, made me feel valued. And the best part is that when I told him about my family, he validated me, told me I wasn't crazy, that what I'd lived through was real, and that it was okay to set boundaries. But then, when I was like 24, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally, I don't answer those calls, but something made me answer that time. It was my mother, crying, telling me my father was in the hospital, that he'd had a heart attack and they didn't know if he was going to survive. And as much as I hadn't been talking to them, he was still my father, you know? So I went to the hospital. My father survived, thank God. And during his recovery, we had like a forced reconciliation. My parents said they wanted to fix things, that they'd been reflecting, that family was the most important thing. Melissa was also there, acting all apologetic, saying she'd exaggerated things before and wanted to start over. I wanted to believe them, wanted to believe things could be different, so I decided to give them another chance. During the following months, I maintained contact with them. It wasn't the closest relationship, but we talked from time to time. I found out my parents were having serious financial problems. My father had lost his job after the heart attack, and they were struggling to make ends meet. Melissa was apparently unemployed again, living with them and basically being an additional burden. I, who by that time was earning well at my job, started helping them financially. I'd send them money every month, like $800, to help them with rent and bills. I know it sounds stupid considering how they'd treated me, but I felt it was my obligation to help them. They were my parents, after all. Christopher and I had been together for 4 years when he proposed to me. It was super romantic. He took me to this beautiful restaurant overlooking the ocean. And honestly, it was one of the happiest moments of my life. When I told my parents, they seemed happy, or at least they acted like it. I started planning the wedding. Nothing super elaborate, but something nice, you know, special enough for us. I invited my parents and Melissa, because despite everything, I still had this ridiculous hope that we could be a normal family, that my wedding could be a moment where we'd all be together and happy. The wedding was planned for a Saturday in May, like 6 months after the engagement. I'd sent out the invitations months in advance, and my parents had confirmed they were going to come. My mother had even helped me pick out some decorations. A week before the wedding, Melissa called to tell me she'd planned a lunch with a potential investor for that same day, that it was super important for her career. Melissa always had some project or business idea that never amounted to anything, and that our parents were going to go with her to support her. I told her, Melissa, it's my wedding. The lunch can be any other day. And she told me all casual, well, you understand this is important to me. I'm sure your wedding will be beautiful anyway. I couldn't believe it. I called my parents to confirm this was a joke, that obviously they were going to come to my wedding and not to Melissa's random lunch. And my mother told me, in that voice she always used when she was telling me I wasn't that important, well, honey, it's just that your sister really needs our support in this. It's a unique opportunity for her. You already have Christopher and all his family will be there. You won't miss us that much. I stayed silent for a moment, processing what I'd just heard, and then I simply said, okay, don't come, and hung up. Christopher found me crying on the couch like half an hour later. I told him what had happened and he was furious. Like I'd never seen him so angry. He told me he'd call my parents himself, but I asked him not to, that it wasn't worth it anymore. The wedding was beautiful, despite everything. Christopher's parents were incredible. His mother even played the role of both families, you know, those traditional wedding moments where parents participate. But I'm not gonna lie, it hurt so much to see the empty chairs where my parents should have been. It hurt that my father didn't walk me down the aisle. It hurt that my mother wasn't there to see me in my dress. Melissa didn't even send a message. Nothing. After the wedding, I cut off all financial contact with my parents. I stopped sending them money, blocked their numbers again. Christopher and I went on our honeymoon to Italy for 2 weeks, and honestly, it was exactly what I needed. Being away from all that drama, just enjoying being married to the love of my life. When we got back, things got worse than I ever could have imagined. My mother showed up at my apartment one day when I was working from home. I don't know how she got my new address, because we'd moved recently. But there she was, knocking on the door insistently. I opened because I thought it was an emergency, that maybe something had happened to my father again. But no, she just wanted to fight. She started yelling at me about how dare I cut off their money, that after everything they'd done for me, that I was ungrateful. A horrible daughter. I tried to stay calm, told her. You guys chose to go to Melissa's lunch instead of my wedding. That was the moment you decided she was more important. So now you can ask her for help. My mother said it was different. That Melissa didn't have money. That I was selfish for not helping my family when they needed it most. I asked her, and where were you when I needed you? When I was working 30 hours a week while studying? When I had to pay for my own college? When Melissa made up all those lies about me and you believed her without even asking me? She had no answers for that, just kept yelling that I was the bad one, that I was destroying the family. I asked her to leave, and when she didn't, I threatened to call the police. She finally left, but before leaving, she told me, "You're going to regret this. Family is family, and someday you're going to need us." I closed the door and broke down, called Christopher crying, and he left work early to be with me. I thought that would be it. That after that confrontation, they'd leave me alone. But oh, surprise, things were just getting started. Like 2 weeks later, Melissa sent me an email, because I also had her number blocked. The email was long, basically telling me she'd found the perfect business opportunity, that she just needed $15,000 to start, and that since I was her sister and had the money, I should help her. $15,000. Just like that. I responded with a simple, no, and blocked her from email too. But then emails started coming from different accounts, messages from unknown numbers. They even tried to contact Christopher at his work, my parents sent, and this is priceless, an itemized list of everything they'd supposedly spent on me during my childhood, from diapers to food to the roof over my head, and told me I technically owed them like $200,000. $200,000 for, basically, fulfilling their obligation as parents. When I showed that list to Christopher, he laughed, like he thought it was a joke, until he saw I wasn't laughing and realized it was completely serious. Things got really crazy when Melissa started a social media campaign. She created posts talking about how her younger sister had abandoned her, how I had money but refused to help my family, how I was a terrible person. She tagged people we both knew, even tried to contact my coworkers. Some of my colleagues asked me if everything was okay, and I had to explain the situation, which was humiliating. My boss even called me into his office to ask if I needed help or company resources to handle a difficult family situation. I decided to consult with a lawyer because this was now affecting my professional life and my mental health. The lawyer confirmed what I already knew, that I had no legal obligation to give them money, that the list they'd sent me had no legal value, and that if they kept harassing me, I could take legal action against them. I paid him like $300 for that consultation, but it was worth it to have that confirmation from a professional. I sent them all one final email, telling them that if they kept contacting me or harassing me, I was going to take legal action. For a couple weeks, they calmed down, and I thought they'd finally understood. But then they started showing up at places I went. My mother showed up at my gym. Melissa showed up at the supermarket I frequent. My father waited for me outside my work one day. Every time it was the same story, trying to make me feel guilty, telling me I was a bad person. That family helps each other. The straw that broke the camel's back was when Melissa showed up at Christopher's parents' house, yelling and making a scene, saying I'd stolen money from the family. Christopher's parents, who are the sweetest people in the world, were terrified. Christopher called the police, and when they arrived, Melissa tried to play the victim, but there were enough witnesses to her erratic behavior. They didn't arrest her that time, but they gave her a warning. That night, Christopher and I had a long conversation about what to do, and he was worried about my safety. I was exhausted from all the drama. We decided it was enough. The next day, I went to the lawyer again, and this time we filed formal harassment charges. We also got a restraining order against all three of them, my parents and Melissa. I changed my phone number, closed all my social media accounts, changed my email, basically disappeared from any way they could contact me. Christopher and I decided to move too. We got an apartment in a different area of the city. I didn't tell anyone from my family where I was. It was like starting completely from scratch. And I'm not gonna lie, it was scary but also liberating. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to worry about what they were going to do or say. I didn't have to carry the guilt of not being enough for them. It's been like 6 months since all that. The restraining order is still active, and as far as I know, they've respected it. I haven't heard anything from them, and honestly, I don't want to know. Sometimes I feel guilty. Like I wonder if I was too harsh, if I should have tried one more time. But then I remember everything that happened. All the years of feeling less than my sister. And I know I made the right decision. Christopher has been my rock through all this. He reminds me every day that I deserve to be treated with respect, that family isn't just blood, but the people who genuinely love and support you. The other day, we were cooking together. Just a normal Sunday thing. And he asked me if I ever regretted cutting contact. I told him no, that for the first time in my life I felt free. And it's true. I don't have that constant anxiety. I'm not waiting for the next crisis, the next demand from my family. It's weird. Because I grew up thinking family was the most important thing, that no matter what happened, you had to maintain those ties. But now I understand that not all families are the same, and that it's okay to walk away when the relationship is toxic. I guess at the end of the day, I have to choose myself, and that's exactly what I did.